Samantha Fraser had just celebrated her 38th birthday the afternoon before, in the arms of her 3 children and her prospective new boyfriend. Last year's birthday was horrible. Her ex-husband Adrian had started more arguments, and she lived in abject fear of him. She considered suicide. But now she was feeling stronger, and next week she had the opportunity to strike a blow back at the man who had terrified her for years, by testifying against him in court. He'd been charged with 5 counts of sexual assault against her, spousal rape. But now she was taking back her strength and her life. So in the morning, she blew off an art class and decided to read a book at her favourite cafe, the G'day Tiger Cafe, before heading home to prepare for a job interview at Bass Coast Health. A good start to the day, and she got to see her boyfriend Wayne and her best friend Leah there too. And so she left, and she drove into the driveway of her house in Cowes on Phillip Island and opened the garage door with the remote. As the garage door opened, she drove the car in nose first and switched off the engine. Her car door opened, and her ex-husband Adrian reached in and pulled her out of the car. Let's take a stab at this. Hi mates, and welcome to Something About Murder. I'm Jay Something, and every week I bring you a couple of cases from Australia's true crime history. If this sounds interesting to you, please help us out by shooting the like button with your trusty boomstick, stabbing the subscribe button, and then punching the notification bell in the face to be notified every time we release a new video. All of our episodes are released at the same time in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your true crime podcast fix. Also, we now have Something About Murder merchandise, designed by myself as well as Australian artist Redneck Kung Fu. There's just a few things here and there, but I'll put the link in the description. 38-year-old mother of 3 Samantha Fraser was found dead inside her garage on Phillip Island in July 2018. After failing to collect her children from school. 10 days later, her ex-husband Adrian was charged with her murder. Another chapter of a senseless narrative of family violence in this country that resulted in a woman's death. Samantha Joy Fraser was born in Swan Hill on the 22nd of July 1980, the first daughter to Janine and Trevor Fraser. She had a brother and a younger sister. In her early years, she was a member of the 2x2's Christian cult, a sect without a real official name, or church building even, with origins in Ireland. She found the strength in her teenage years to leave the cult, the first of her family to do so, which created tension within the family and led to her being disowned by a lot of her extended family. Her mother soon followed suit, and so did her other siblings and her father Trevor. Despite this upbringing, Samantha worked hard to become college captain and dux of her high school, before going to university to study psychology, eventually becoming a full-time psychologist. She soon married a man in Riddles Creek, but that marriage ended quickly, after a year when the man cheated on her. In 2006, she met a man named Adrian Basham through mutual friends. Adrian James Basham was born in September 1976 to his unnamed mother and his father James, an older brother to his sister Amanda. He had a secure and stable upbringing in suburban Melbourne. In primary school he excelled in both academic and sporting roles and had a strong friendship circle. However, he experienced bullying and was ostracised in secondary school, later changing schools in Year 10. And so after obtaining a bachelor's degree at RMIT University, Adrian completed a carpentry apprenticeship and a number of other accreditations related to carpentry, construction, and occupational health and safety, and thereafter worked in commercial construction. After meeting Samantha Fraser in 2006, the two had a whirlwind romance and were married in 2007, settling in the seaside town of Cowes on Victoria's beautiful Phillip Island. In 2009, the couple had their first child, a daughter, Jemima. They added to their family with another daughter, April, in 2011, and a son, Rex, in 2013. However, behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Adrian took a job as a fly-in, fly-out worker in Western Australia, meaning that he was away for a month at a time and then would come back for a week before flying out to work again. When Adrian flew home to Phillip Island, he always insisted that Samantha have their house so immaculate that all the jars in the pantry had their labels facing out. He'd openly criticise her parenting and her cleaning of the house. Spousal rape began in 2009. However, specifically, in 2014, Adrian locked Samantha in the pantry and raped her while her children were nearby and calling out for their mother. Samantha said, "What are you doing? The kids are out there. No!" But Adrian pulled down her underwear, had sex with her, unlocked the pantry, and left. Later that year, Samantha woke up to Adrian having sex with her whilst they were in bed with their son Rex. She said that she'd woken up to Adrian doing this and that it had started while she was asleep. Adrian ejaculated and then rolled over and fell asleep, and Samantha got out of bed and took Rex back to his own bed. Again, in 2016, while Samantha was fast asleep, she awoke once again to Adrian having sex with her. This time, although Samantha froze for a moment, she then pushed him off, said, "You can't do that. I was asleep. That is rape," and went and slept in one of her children's rooms. Samantha stated that Adrian would generally insist on accompanying her everywhere, and when she was with friends, he was physically possessive and inappropriately sexual in his behaviour. This made her feel uncomfortable. After she requested physical space, Adrian's behaviour became increasingly sexualised in public. He used big open arms to pull her in for hugs, grabbed her bottom, and grabbed her chin to force a kiss on her lips, involving his tongue. Adrian became defensive and sulky if she moved away. When she was out with friends, Adrian would call her regularly to discuss minor topics like the next week's grocery list, the possibility of changing insurers, or whether she could leave what she was doing to come and do an activity with him. Adrian would get very defensive, frustrated, and verbally aggressive when she tried to suggest that they could discuss this later, or refuse to leave whatever she was doing. Samantha felt coerced, manipulated, and controlled by Adrian's behaviour, and in despair and panic. And around this time, Samantha made several attempts to end the relationship or to discuss a separation. One Friday afternoon in 2016, she left her daughter at home asleep with Adrian when she went to pick up their other children, Rex and Jemima, from school. She left her phone in the car and was having a conversation with a teacher when Adrian approached her, swearing at her for not having the phone on her. He grabbed her underneath her armpit in front of everyone and dragged her towards the car. Samantha was scared, upset, and embarrassed. In November 2016, Samantha spoke to Adrian about the damage that spousal rape was doing to their marriage. Adrian was reluctant for her to do things without him and became defensive when she organised anything without involving him. He timed her with his phone stopwatch while she was helping him do jobs, stopped the timer if she moved away from those activities, and yelled at her and berated her for laziness. When she tried to assert herself, Adrian responded by telling her that she was a bully and was controlling. In January 2017, Samantha and Adrian's marriage was on the rocks. Adrian had become incredibly domineering and controlling of their relationship, continually accusing Samantha of affairs with men and women they knew. Samantha spoke to Adrian and his father James about a separation, including discussing domination, aggression, controlling behaviours, and spousal rape. So in order to save their marriage, Adrian was referred by his general practitioner to Terence Melvin, a psychologist, with respect to anxiety. His first appointment was the 23rd of February. Unexpectedly to Mr. Melvin, Adrian attended with Samantha, but couples counselling was agreed to between the two. Mr. Melvin saw each of Adrian and Samantha alone before seeing them together. Meanwhile, when Adrian was interstate on the 27th of January, Samantha contacted Bass Coast Health, Counselling and Social Work Service to request family violence counselling. She spoke briefly and without detail on the telephone to Sharon Churchill, a social worker with the service. An appointment was made for face-to-face counselling, and at that appointment, Samantha told Miss Churchill that there were several occasions during the marriage when she woke up to Adrian having sex with her. Miss Churchill discussed the availability of the sexual assault counselling service with Samantha. Samantha said that at that moment she was feeling safe and supported, and so elected to not make a follow-up appointment. She also said that Adrian's father James was acting as a mediator in relation to the finances and the children. Although she had suggested that it might not be appropriate, Samantha did reconcile with Adrian briefly at his request around the time of their 10th wedding anniversary. On the 9th of March, Samantha told Mr. Melvin that she was fearful of leaving the relationship and of Adrian's domination and control of her. 3 joint sessions with Mr. Melvin then took place, with the last taking place on the 5th of April, as further sessions required another medical referral. During a consultation with Bridget Linda, a Chinese medicine practitioner, Samantha used Ms. Linda's phone to telephone Nicole Staines at the sexual assault counselling service, at the suggestion of Ms. Linda, after Samantha stated that she was worried that Adrian was monitoring all of her telephone use. During the Term 1 school holidays, Jemima asked Samantha to take her out for brunch, as they had not had much one-on-one time recently. Everyone else was still in their pyjamas, and there were no firm plans for the day, so she said yes. And as she headed down the hallway, Adrian called Samantha back and asked aggressively why she was going out when there were still jobs to do. She was confused. Adrian said, "Don't you see the vacuum cleaner in the kitchen? You haven't emptied it yet." Samantha quickly emptied and started to head out. Adrian then berated her that the job was only half done because she hadn't put the vacuum cleaner away in the back cupboard. And when Samantha said that Jemima was waiting for her in the car, and surely she could do that when she got back, Adrian became angry and accused her of always heading out and leaving all the jobs to him, and that she should stay until they're finished. The next weekend, Adrian took a photograph of the clock on the wall to indicate the start time and set a stopwatch to record her finish time. He shoved that stopwatch up into her face to show her how little she had worked and how unproductive she'd been. He took a photo of the clock a little before 10 a.m. and berated her for being so slow to get started. She was called back inside, and he followed her inside and showed her a photo of the stopwatch paused at 13 minutes and 8 seconds in her face, and he yelled at her about how lazy and ungrateful she was. Also that month, while her cousin Sarah and her husband Andy were visiting, they had a discussion with her and Adrian about house break-ins and car thefts. Afterwards, Adrian raised this conversation with Samantha a number of times. On at least 3 occasions in one day, Adrian said to Samantha, "You never know when someone's going to break into your house and do you harm," followed by lengthy, heavy pauses. Samantha felt like those comments were designed to make her feel afraid. On Easter Saturday of 2017, she again broached the subject of separation with Adrian. Adrian was initially angry and refused to discuss it, but when she persisted, he refused to move out of the house and said that she couldn't make him move out of the house. So on the evening of Easter Sunday, she moved a few belongings into her mum and dad's house. They lived a couple of houses up the same street. Adrian would not let her take the children. Because of Adrian's defensiveness and aggression towards her, she advised him to direct all his conversations through her dad, but of course all of the phone calls still came through to her. The next day, Samantha phoned Sharon Churchill, requesting a joint appointment with Nicole Staines, stating that she and Adrian were still separated, but he refused to leave the family home. Samantha also said that she was staying with her parents and seeing the children only when she was taking them to and from school. She said that she did not believe the children were at risk of harm from Adrian. Ms. Churchill urged Samantha to engage with further supports and again provided contacts for 2 legal services, Relationships Australia and Salvo Care's Family Violence Outreach Program. The next day, while the further medical referral to Terence Melvin was pending, Samantha called Mr. Melvin. She stated that she'd decided to separate and that Adrian had had difficulty accepting the decision. She further said that she was frightened and believed that Adrian would become vindictive. Samantha also first told Mr. Melvin in this conversation about rape in the marriage. She described a number of situations when Adrian would demand sex even though she didn't want it, and also described him waking her in the middle of the night and forcing her to have sex. And so Adrian was due to have a solo session with Mr. Melvin on the 21st of April, but instead attended with Samantha. During this consultation, Samantha described an incident that took place in the family home in Phillip Island, in which Adrian pushed her into a cupboard, remember the pantry incident, and forced her to have sex with him. Samantha did not give a date. However, Mr. Melvin states that he then asked Adrian if he had done that, and Adrian said yes. Mr. Melvin said that he then asked Adrian if he realised that it amounted to a sexual assault, to no response, and he told Adrian that his behaviour was unacceptable. Adrian then sought to justify his behaviour by stating that it was the fault of Samantha for not communicating clearly. Samantha then became upset, panicked, and ran out of the room after saying, "This is what you always do." Mr. Melvin followed Samantha out to a small courtyard where she sat down. Adrian remained in the room. Samantha was having difficulty breathing and was really quite distressed. So Mr. Melvin spoke to her about breathing, told her to focus on him and listen to his voice, using common techniques to regain her composure. Samantha was at this point struggling with depression, had difficulty eating, sleeping and breathing, but during sessions he had with the couple, both separately and together, Adrian blamed the relationship breakdown on his wife, and Mr. Melvin later noted that Adrian took very little responsibility for his behaviour or his contribution to what was happening in the relationship, or lack thereof. Mr. Melvin offered to keep counselling Adrian, but he did tell him to move out of the family home and respect Samantha's decision to split up. Adrian Basham never returned any of Mr. Melvin's calls after this final session, while Samantha continued to see him until December 2017. On the 22nd of April, publicly, Adrian grabbed Samantha on the bum and wobbled it, making a comment about how aroused he was. When she put some distance between them and commented that this was inappropriate, he became defensive and stormed off. On the 25th of April, Samantha telephoned Mr. Melvin to describe a recent incident in which Adrian had set fire to the fence at the rear of the family home. She said that she was anxious and terrified of Adrian. They discussed whether an intervention order would be appropriate in the circumstances. On the 28th of April, Samantha contacted the San Remo police station and spoke with Senior Constable Andy Lone to report the sexual assaults. She also at this time discussed obtaining an intervention order against Adrian. Senior Constable Lone then contacted Detective Senior Constable Simon Fisher at the Morwell Sexual Offences team. Fisher told Lone that the matter would be investigated and he should contact Samantha regarding the intervention order. Lone was unable to do the latter immediately, so asked Sergeant Robin Heal to do so. Sergeant Heal had an extensive telephone conversation with Samantha, during which Samantha said that Adrian had committed family violence on her. Samantha also said that she'd made extensive notes, which she later emailed to Heal. Heal then briefed Lone, who used the information to put together an application for a complaint and warrant for an intervention order. The complaint included that Samantha has also reported some historical assaults that are being investigated by the Morwell Sexual Offences team. It also included allegations of aggression and domination by Adrian and Samantha's fear of vindictiveness by him, as well as Samantha's belief that Adrian caused the fire to the rear fence of the family home. Around this time, one of the couple's friends heard Adrian say, "If I can't have her, no one will." And Samantha was concerned that Adrian was using the location app on her phone to track her whereabouts. When she asked him about this, he was evasive. And when she disabled the location app, she received a call from Adrian within about an hour in which he was angry, and he demanded to know where she was and berated her for disabling the location app. The application for the intervention order was served on Adrian on the 5th of May while he was in Western Australia. He was bailed to attend the Wonthaggi Magistrates Court on the 19th of May. Around this time, Samantha attended an appointment with both Sharon Churchill and Nicole Staines. She stated that she and the children were back in the family home, Adrian had agreed to separation, and she'd sought legal advice and self-referred to the Salvo Care's Family Violence Case Management Service, where she was on the wait list. Samantha said that Adrian had continued to harass her via text and phone calls using words such as, "You never know when someone will break into your house and do you harm." Samantha also provided a written narrative of events which was placed on file. Adrian continually attempted to undermine arrangements for access to their children by trying to change them by email. Samantha told Christy Slatter, her caseworker at Salvo Care Easton, that she had concerns that Adrian was watching her. Ms. Slatter made a Safer in the Home referral for Samantha and requested a full audit of her home, including spyware and other technology. An interim order was made in favour of Samantha and her children. Adrian did not agree to the order. Later that month, Samantha had a telephone conversation with Christy Slatter and stated that she believed Adrian had been going through the phone numbers in her phone and calling each person she had been calling before stating that he had the wrong number and hanging up. In June, Samantha attended a counselling session with Sharon Churchill, who advised to discuss any breaches of the intervention order with leading Senior Constable Anne Barnes, a VicPol Family Violence Liaison Officer. A further interim order was made, and again, Adrian did not agree to the order. However, in early August, police arrested and charged Adrian Basham with the historical sexual assaults of Samantha Fraser. Following this arrest, Senior Constable Lone applied for a variation of the interim order to prevent Adrian from going to or remaining on Phillip Island. That variation was granted. Adrian, of course, did not agree to it. The matter was adjourned to the 29th of August, on which date it seems that condition preventing him from attending Phillip Island was rescinded. At this time, Samantha had security sensor lights installed at her house and had her garage door remote control recoded. Around the 3rd of July, Samantha told her boss, Alice Bradley, that Adrian had raped her and she was going to bring charges against him. Ms. Bradley was the practice manager at the Cowes Medical Centre where Samantha worked, and this discussion was made as Samantha was going to Cowes Police Station to make her statements to police, which were sworn later that day. And of course, around this time, Adrian applied for an IVO against Samantha, citing physical, financial, and sexual abuse, and that he had applied for an IVO against her mother, Janine. Yeah, alright, good one, mate. Anyway, on the 12th of January 2018, a final order was made in the presence of Adrian by consent and without admission of the rape allegations. Hairdresser Ashley Bowen devised a safety plan with Samantha in case something happened. If the children needed to get out of the house, they could run to Ashley's house. Samantha placed pieces of wood on the windows to stop them being opened from outside, as well as installing further security equipment. Samantha had been a professional psychologist. She knew and could detect some of the traits that Adrian had, which would make him a very dangerous person. She knew her life was at risk, and she knew that by taking her power back and deciding to leave him would cause him to retaliate in an aggressive, dangerous manner. She told friends that he would kill her, kill the children, and then kill himself. In early 2018, a friend saw Adrian in the supermarket, and he called Samantha disgusting, called her a liar and a manipulator, and said she was an absolute disgrace for taking his 3 children away from him. Adrian was losing his own friends as well. Everyone who knew him was on edge around him because he'd just blow up for no reason, fly off the handle, and they all saw the way he treated Samantha. However, in April 2018, Samantha met a new man, Wayne Foster, and, in her private life at least, things began to look up. But all the while, this shadow of Adrian Basham loomed behind them. He'd been forbidden from seeing the children since September 2017, after the rape charges were laid against him, but she still thought she heard him at night from time to time. Adrian cancelled her mobile phone plan around that time, so she got a new phone, as well as a safety phone from SalvoCare. In early July, Janine and Trevor, Samantha's parents, went to the United States to see her brother Nick. This meant that Samantha was alone with the children, and so she became quite vigilant around her safety, especially around the 20th of July when she got word that Adrian was back on Phillip Island. She told friends she felt unsafe in the long term, particularly following the 30th of July, when she would have to give evidence against Adrian in the rape case. Nicole Staines had planned to be there to support her, and she was to give evidence in a situation where she could not see Adrian, but he could see her. She made an appointment with her hairdresser for the 28th of July. She wanted to look properly presentable in court. Adrian was in New Zealand between the 6th and the 19th of July, and upon returning to Australia, he went to stay at his sister's Chelsea Heights home. At 10:08 a.m. on the 20th of July, CCTV footage from a camera affixed to the front of Adrian's sister's house showed a male hand covering the camera with a yellow post-it note, or something similar. It then fell off about 30 seconds later, and Adrian was then recorded preparing his motorcycle and luggage to leave the address at about 10:30 a.m, wearing a distinctive black and white motorcycle jacket and a black and green motorcycle helmet. Adrian rode his motorbike to Phillip Island and then San Remo, leaving his usual mobile phone in Chelsea Heights and travelling with a different phone with a number registered in the name of his new girlfriend, Kylie. She'd set up the mobile phone with a new SIM card and had lent it to Adrian so that he could have private conversations with his father if he needed to. Adrian then spent 2 nights at a friend's house in San Remo. It was Samantha's birthday on Sunday the 22nd of July, and she had a party around at her house during the afternoon. According to friends, Sam was happy, her spirits were high, and she was surrounded by her family, children, close friends. Sam spoke privately to a couple of friends about the upcoming court case, but was looking forward to getting through the process and starting her life again. She was strong, determined, and ready to stand up in court, tell her story, and have her voice heard. She was excited about the prospect of returning to work and being financially independent again, and had a job interview the next day at midday with Basque Coast Health. She told her new boyfriend Wayne that her birthday the previous year was horrible, and that she'd considered taking her own life because she was sick of the situation with Adrian, as he was taking everything away from her. So following the party, Wayne texted her, "How will you remember this birthday in years to come?" Samantha replied, "The beginning of a wonderful new stage of my life. Things were starting to fall Samantha's way. Unbeknownst to Samantha, though, Adrian was on Phillip Island, and on the morning of her birthday, Adrian had ridden his motorbike slowly past her house. On the morning of the 23rd of July 2018, Samantha got the children up and ready for school and left the house at about 10 to 9. She then went to the G'day Tiger Cafe in Cowes, where she met her boyfriend Wayne and her best friend Leah Matthews. During this time, Samantha decided not to attend a scheduled art class, preferring to have a read of a book and prepare herself for a midday job interview at Bass Coast Health. And so she texted her friend Peter to cancel, saying that she wasn't feeling well. It's a good excuse the day after a birthday. After a coffee together, Wayne and Leah left. Wayne came back after about half an hour to find Samantha sitting by herself, just reading a book. Just really nice. They spent a little bit more time together until about 11 a.m, till Samantha left, and they'd said they'd catch up later. They were taking their time with this relationship, which was really considerate given Samantha's past with Adrian. Samantha arrived home at around 11:20 a.m. to prepare for a job interview. Adrian left the San Remo house where he was staying at approximately 7:20 a.m. and rode to Settlement Road, Cowes, arriving at 7:40. He parked near the junction of Seagrove Way and Settlement Road and waited. Shortly before 9 a.m, Adrian was observed walking along Seagrove Way and at 8:55 a.m. captured on CCTV footage walking past number 13 Seagrove Way, 3 doors up from the family home. He was wearing a blue hooded jacket, and the hood of the jacket was up and tightly drawn around his face. His hands were in his pockets, and he was looking around as he walked. At about 9 a.m, Adrian half ran into the heavily vegetated front yard of 19 Seagrove Way, the family home, and was not seen again until after Samantha had arrived home, which she did at 11:20 a.m. She drove nose first into the garage, and as she did so, Adrian slipped into the garage behind her. Inside the garage, Adrian surprised Samantha as she sat in the driver's seat, savagely assaulting her and causing her 41 separate blunt force injuries. Some were visible on the skin and others were much more visible under the skin. Injuries to Samantha's fingers were consistent with defensive injuries sustained while blocking, and all of the blunt force trauma appeared to have been sustained at about the same time. She fought. She was likely unconscious after all of the blunt force trauma. Adrian used a rope, believed to belong to Samantha's father and to have been stored in the garage, and he tied a hangman's noose and then suspended Samantha by the neck from a track of the sectional garage door. Adrian arranged the scene to make it appear that Samantha had committed suicide by hanging. He placed a small stepladder on its side beside Samantha's suspended body and removed Samantha's white top from the premises. Samantha survived for at least 10 minutes afterwards, although likely unconscious. Once hanged, she sustained ligature marks to the neck. During the time that Adrian was manipulating the crime scene, attempting to make it look like a suicide, he was noticed by a neighbour who was walking his dog. He saw Adrian at the top of the driveway next to the garbage bins doing something while the door to the garage was raised about 2 feet from the ground. He made eye contact with Adrian but did not speak to him. The neighbour turned away before looking back. Adrian continued to look at him as he walked off, following him, more or less with just a body movement. At 11:35 a.m, Leah Matthews telephoned Samantha. The call went unanswered, and Samantha failed to attend her job interview with Bass Coast Health at noon. Adrian was then captured on CCTV footage running away from 19 Seagrove Way at 12:04 p.m. When he left, Adrian took Samantha's white top with him, which was likely covered in blood. He retrieved his motorcycle jacket and helmet, and returned to San Remo between about 12:30 p.m. and 1 p.m. Adrian then rode to his father James's house in Paynesville. En route, he was intercepted by police for speeding, where they observed Adrian to be quite agitated and visibly upset. Constable Amy Frost asked Adrian if he'd had any involvement with the police before. Adrian said, I really can't deal with this. I can't take it anymore. Yeah, I've spoken to the police, but just intervention order stuff. Frost asked, you not wanted or anything like that? Adrian said, No. Please, I can't have this on top of everything that I have going on in my life right now. This just keeps getting worse. My ex's lawyer will use this against me. I really don't need this. Please, no. Not with all of the stuff I have already going on. Please, no. Constable Frost said, Look, I'm not going to give you a ticket, we're just doing some checks. We won't be long. Take some deep breaths and relax for me, okay? I can see that you have had a bad day and that you're upset. Constable Frost described Adrian as crying uncontrollably. She states that she was concerned, and she asked if there was anything she could do for him and offered to put in referrals to get him help. He declined. Adrian Basham arrived at his father's house at around 5:15 p.m. As for Samantha, well, she failed to collect her children, obviously, from Cowes Primary School at 3:30 p.m. She was a good mum, she never left them hanging. So staff alerted police, and Samantha's body was found at about 5:05 p.m. after police forced entry to the garage via the rear pedestrian access door from the backyard. There were no signs of forced entry to the house. It was described as being fortified. Samantha was found hanging by a length of rope tied around her neck in a hangman's noose-style knot. The rope was wrapped around the track of the sectional garage door and held in place by friction and the weight of Samantha, as opposed to a knot tying the rope to the garage door track. Samantha was suspended, although her feet were almost flat on the garage floor. There was a clump of apparent hair attached to the rope some distance above Samantha's head, and there were areas of apparent blood staining on the rope between her head and the garage door track. Her hair was unkempt and had come loose from a ponytail. It also had apparent blood staining and had become entangled in the rope and appeared wet at the front. A 3-step ladder, tipped on its side, was located beside Samantha's body, with 2 bicycles and 2 children's scooters standing upright and apparently undisturbed immediately beside Samantha's body. All points of entry to the house were locked except 2 windows, one in the toilet powder room and the other in the laundry, which were closed and had their internal fly screens in place. Police did not discover any suicide note. James Basham, Adrian's father, was phoned by police at 2 a.m. on the 24th of July. Adrian didn't want to come to the phone, so after arrangements were made, police attended at 3:30 a.m. and notified Adrian of Samantha's death. Early investigations thought that it was suicide. Adrian still did not want to see the police. Later in the day, on the 24th of July 2018, Adrian told his friend Michael that he had not been near Phillip Island at the time of Samantha's death, and, in his words, "I didn't use a credit card or FPOS or anything." Why would you say that? Throughout the 24th and 25th of July, police had a series of communications with Adrian's legal representatives. Initially, this was for Adrian to provide a statement to police, but as a result of information gathered, a decision was made during the afternoon of the 25th of July to treat Adrian as a suspect. An arrangement was made for Adrian to surrender himself for interview in the company of his lawyer at 9 a.m. on the 26th of July 2018. Adrian Basham was arrested at the Melbourne West Police Complex. He was observed to have a 2 centimetre abrasion to the right side of his nose and a superficial scratch of 3 centimetres to the inner aspect of his right forearm. I told you Samantha fought. Police questioned his movements and whether he was on Phillip Island on the 23rd of July, and Adrian exercised his right to remain silent, underwent a physical examination by a forensic medical officer, and was released without charge pending further investigations. At about 11 a.m. on the 28th of July, Adrian approached the premises of 4 Park Road, San Remo, observing police taking written statements from his friends at a different address on the same road. He told both friends to not cooperate with police before entering 4 Park Road. He then jumped over the back fence into the vacant block at 34 Park Road, being seen by a neighbour. He reached the shed and bobbed down so the neighbour could not see him until he got just past the shed again, and then he stood up. And he then walked to the front of the block, looking from left to right and behind him. Once level with his neighbour's back porch, he made eye contact with her from about 7 metres away. She said that it looked like there was something up his t-shirt, which she described as the shape of a little backpack, about 30 centimetres wide and tall. Adrian left, but not before saying to the neighbour, "If the cops ask, you haven't seen a thing." After further investigation, Adrian Basham was arrested in Bairnsdale and charged with murder on the 2nd of August 2018. Police obtained a court order for a DNA swab, and Adrian refused to comply with this order. Force was required to obtain a swab of his saliva. At trial, Adrian pleaded not guilty to murder, maintaining that Samantha Fraser killed herself. His defence was that he got into a physical argument with Samantha on the day of her death, but that when he left, she was alive and probably took her own life after he left. During the trial, which heard from 79 witnesses, The jury was told that Basham was controlling and abusive during the couple's marriage and after their separation. Supreme Court was also told that Basham had threatened Samantha and that she was scared of him. Basham wore a neat white shirt and chino pants as he sat quietly facing the judge, at times just shaking his head. After hearing all of the evidence, the jury took less than 2 days to find Adrian Basham guilty of Samantha Fraser's murder. In pre-sentencing, Adrian's defence team claimed that he was a marked man in the prison system and was placed into protective custody after he was assaulted and threatened, describing him as a despised prisoner. The court heard 16 victim impact statements, including from 2 of Samantha and Adrian's children, as well as from her parents and friends. At sentencing in February 2023, 50 of Samantha's loved ones filled the Supreme Court, gasping and collectively clapping as Adrian Basham was sentenced to life in jail with a non-parole period of 30 years.
For the offence of murder, I sentence you to life in prison.
Daughter Jemima was red-eyed and stony-faced as she watched her father react to his sentence for her mother's murder. Now a teenager, her eldest daughter said nothing would compare to the damage Basham had done to her and her family's lives. She told the court that Adrian murdered her mum, taking her life, and in doing so, destroyed so many others. The judge told Adrian, "You are utterly without remorse. You do not accept the returned jury verdict in what was an overwhelming prosecution case. You continue to maintain that Ms. Fraser took her own life. You are unmoved in the face of numerous statements detailing the pain you have caused your children, as well as Ms. Fraser's family and her friends, whose lives you have forever scarred. Your behaviour towards Ms. Fraser within your marriage and your premeditated murder of her to prevent her giving evidence of rape against you is conduct that is selfish in the extreme and displays an extraordinary degree of entitlement."
It was the ultimate act of family violence. Her last conscious moments would have passed in terror. Your abominable conduct as worst case. It deserves a life sentence. You are utterly without remorse. Your children continue to suffer the unbearable loss of their mother.
Leaving the court, Basham lingered for a moment to look back at his daughter, who was surrounded by family and friends. Speaking to media outside, Samantha Fraser's father, who is now a primary caregiver for his grandchildren, said justice had been served, hoping that it was a strong benchmark of sentencing for family violence offenders. With time already served, Adrian Basham will be eligible for parole in 2050. Samantha's murder at the hands of her ex-husband is yet another in a long line of murders by entitled men who can't bear to see their partners move on or be successful in their lives without them. Across the country, right now, there are thousands of women living in fear of their partners or ex-partners. We need the conversation about gendered violence to continue. It needs to be accurate. We need it at the forefront of every woman and every man's minds. We need our children, boys and girls, to learn respectful relationships so they can live the life we always hoped they would, not in jail or in an early grave. We desperately need to extinguish our culture of misogyny, and we need to talk. We can't let women like Samantha Fraser or the victim of one of last season's episodes, Hannah Clarke, we can't let them have suffered these violent deaths in vain. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate you watching the whole video. Join me next time as we trawl through another episode in the true crime history of Australia. If you've enjoyed this video, once again please go ahead and shoot the like button with your trusty boomstick, stab that subscribe button, and make sure you also punch the notification bell in the face so you can get notified every time we release a new video. It really helps us out. And remember, all of our episodes are released at the same time on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm on Instagram at somethingaboutmurder, and I respond to every message I receive. So I hope to hear from you, and I hope you don't get murdered. Stay safe out there.